In the history of modern music, countless songs have been born from inspiration, yet only a rare few are born truly from loss. Tears in Heaven is one of them. It was not written to prove artistic brilliance. It was not crafted to climb the charts. It was never part of a commercial strategy. It emerged instead from the broken heart of a father, a heart so shattered it no longer knew where to turn for comfort. Before 1991, Eric Clapton was already a legend. He had journeyed through both the highest peaks and the darkest valleys of life. He had battled addiction, alcohol, and an inner loneliness that fame could not quiet. Though he possessed recognition, wealth, and admiration from around the world, his private life remained marked by a quiet emptiness. Everything began to change with the arrival of his young son, Conor. Eric once said that becoming a father transformed the way he saw the world. He began thinking about the future. He longed for stability. For the first time in years, he felt he had a reason to stay, to truly live. Conor became the center of a new universe, one in which concert stages and applause no longer held the greatest importance. Then, on the morning of March 20th, 1991, that universe collapsed. In a sudden and merciless accident, Conor fell from the window of a 53rd floor apartment in New York City and died instantly. The tragedy did not simply take the life of a child. It shattered every vision of the future that Eric Clapton had only just begun to see. After that day, he could barely speak of what had happened. He retreated into silence, into guilt, into unanswered questions. Why wasn't he there? How could the world be so cruel to a child? Why was the happiness he had only just embraced taken away so swiftly? In the months that followed, Clapton withdrew from the world. Music, the language through which he had always spoken, became something he could hardly bear to touch. Every chord, every note carried him back to unbearable memories. Until one day, he picked up the guitar again. Not to write for an audience, not to return to the stage, but simply to survive his own sorrow. During that time, he began asking himself whether music still had meaning in his life. For many artists, music is a profession. For Clapton, it had always been an emotional refuge. And when that refuge trembled, he had to learn how to use it again. Not as a tool for success, but as a safe space for pain too deep for ordinary words. Writing Tears in Heaven was not a conventional act of creation. It was closer to emotional healing. Clapton collaborated with songwriter Will Jennings, who understood how to give voice to unspoken depths. Together, they chose words that were simple, unadorned, and unforced. True grief does not require complexity. It speaks most honestly in quiet language. Interestingly, Clapton never intended the song to be sad in the traditional sense. He did not write it to make the world weep. He wrote it as a reminder to himself that he must go on living. Lines such as "I must be strong and carry on" were not meant as comfort for listeners. They were instructions he repeated to himself, so that he would not remain forever trapped in yesterday. The lyrics hold more questions than answers, questions filled with uncertainty, fear, and fragile hope. He did not speak of heaven as a sacred destination, but as a possibility, a quiet thought that perhaps, somewhere beyond death, he might see his son again, and that the bond between father and child might endure beyond earthly life. When the song was featured in the 1992 film Rush, no one anticipated how deeply such a gentle, understated piece would resonate. Yet once released, it ceased to belong solely to Eric Clapton. It became the story of anyone who had ever lost someone without warning. Few realize how hesitant Clapton was to share it publicly. To him, the song felt unbearably fragile. It was not an artist's mask, it was his heart completely exposed. And once released into the world, he could no longer control how it would be received. The song's most defining moment came with its performance on MTV Unplugged. In that version, everything unnecessary was stripped away. Only an acoustic guitar, a trembling voice, and the silence between notes remained, and sometimes that silence spoke louder than melody. The audience was not witnessing a legend. They were witnessing a man standing honestly beside his own loss. That performance transformed Tears in Heaven into a moment etched into music history, a moment when an artist removed his armor and acknowledged that pain is part of being human. The Unplugged album achieved extraordinary success, and Tears in Heaven became one of the most influential songs of the 1990s. The Grammy Awards in 1993 were merely outward recognition. What mattered more was that the song became an emotional refuge for millions around the world. Yet for Eric Clapton, success never erased the pain. He once admitted that performing the song repeatedly felt like reopening the same wound. Eventually, he chose to stop playing it live, believing it had already fulfilled its purpose. To him, the song was not something to carry forever. It was a bridge, one that helped him cross the darkest chapter of his life. And once he had crossed, he gently set it down. For the world, however, Tears in Heaven never faded. It continues to be played in moments of farewell. It remains a companion in times of loss. It reminds us that true love does not end with death. In a world that often urges us to be strong too quickly, music like Tears in Heaven moves against the current. It does not rush us past sorrow. It grants us permission to grieve, to question, to cry without shame. Its healing is gentle yet profoundly deep. Tears in Heaven is not only a song of Eric Clapton's loss, it is a lesson in humanity. It teaches us that love does not vanish with death, and that pain is not a sign of failure, but proof that we once loved truly. In the end, Tears in Heaven is an unanswered conversation between the living and the departed. We may never know the answers in this lifetime, yet the song offers something equally precious. A quiet hope that although we live with tears today, one day we may learn to smile at those memories without guilt. And perhaps that is the most profound healing music can offer. Maybe the greatest role of music is not to make us happy, but to remain beside us on the days we cannot endure, when comfort feels empty, and when the world grows unbearably still. And perhaps, somewhere in heaven, the answers to the song's deepest questions and the answers a father has long sought are waiting there. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, share it with someone you love, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next story behind the songs you love.